Hi, this is Beth with The Other Side of Darkness. Check out my blog, theothersideofdarkness.com, where I give my testimony on how I came out of witchcraft, the occult, New Age, and so much more because of the love and grace of Jesus Christ, who has just walked with me side by side, hand in hand, leading me in his grace and mercy and compassion into a new life full of hope. I post every Monday, so please check it out and subscribe. So today I am going to give my full testimony on living in and growing up in a satanic cult as a survivor. I'm going to take you through, step by step, through my entire story, starting before I was born. Before I was born, my grandmother on my mother's side and my grandfather met a man who was a Mormon cult leader. He practiced horrific child sacrifice and also child trafficking. These were not things that were well known, but they were hidden. When my grandparents met them, they did not see any of these things. They saw a beautiful church that gave them hope and a future. Once they began to be indoctrinated into this occult society, as it were, not realizing what it was, my grandfather began to get a lust and greed for power and money. And he was a well-known psychologist at that time. He grew in stature and authority in the Mormon Church and in the secret society behind the facade of the Mormon Church. This was when the indoctrination of my family line on my mother's side began into the occult. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away about the time I was born, because when you give yourself and your life to the occult and you slip up and make a mistake, they take your life. My grandmother became the matriarch of the family bloodline, meaning she was in charge of continuing all the work they had started. She raised all of their 7 children in the ways of the occult / Mormon church, indoctrinating them just as she was taught to do. She believed with all of her heart that it was good and right and pure. She did not believe what she was doing was wrong or harmful in any way. She had the best of intentions to save not only her children, but her entire family line from hell. And the teachings that she endeared her heart to, unfortunately, were complete lies. Moving forward, I want to take you to a scene in heaven that God has shown me. The throne room of God, where he has his throne in the heavenly realm. And a little girl who's just a spirit, but in heaven looks like a little girl. And God is just her father, and that's all she knows. She doesn't see him as God, just only as Papa. Papa calls her to his throne, and she just runs and dances her way there. She's full of joy and light and love. She sits on his lap and he says, "I have something to tell you. Are you ready? It's time." She knew what he was talking about because all the spirits in heaven know that they're all going to have an appointed time to come down to the earth to get a body and to do a very special job for Papa, or whatever their special name is for him. She sits on his lap and is overjoyed, but he says, before you go, before you say yes, I need to show you. So he shows her a picture, a moving picture, almost like on a movie screen. And she sees terrible, terrible things happening to her through her life for a very long time. But then she sees the end. And she smiles and she jumps up and down and she says, yes, yes, yes. And he says, okay, it's time to go now. And he takes her spirit, and it's like a ball of light. And it starts to travel out of heaven. But she reaches up as she descends out from heaven, trying to just keep grasp on heaven before she goes. And as that spirit descends towards the earth, ready to become that embryo that is created through conception of a man and a woman, her mother and father, even then, the Masonic curses of her generational line are attacking her. As she comes into her mother's body, and the curses are trying to come at her, God, Papa, sends an angel to go inside of her mother's womb and shield her and protect her for 9 months so that she can grow and be strong and healthy when she's born. Because she's really going to need that strength to get through the life, the assignment that God has given her. Well, that assignment that God gave me was to go into the depths of darkness, despair, hopelessness in the occult, and come out on the other side of darkness so that I could bring the hope and light of God back to those who were drowning in the same hopelessness and despair and darkness that I was in for 36 years of my life. So as a child, as an infant, I was indoctrinated into the occult, into the Satanic, Illuminati, occult bloodline. There was a ritual, a ceremony done over me as an infant where they crowned me literally and spiritually as the Queen of Darkness. I was to carry on this heritage. I was continually sexually abused and molested by family members, starting at that time and onward. But God did not forsake me, even through this. In my crib, as I lie, sleeping, or even in waking, Papa would send his angels to sing over me. And they would sing the same 3 songs over and over until I learned them. By the time I was 2, I had visions and dreams of angels and knew that I could speak to God. And I would sing those songs. I learned them by repetition of hearing them. And at 2, I would tell my father I could talk to God, I could see God and angels. And because of my family's belief system, I was told that I was a liar and that I was crazy, and I was beaten for it. But that was just the beginning. That was only a severe spanking. But that was only the beginning of what the Illuminati was going to do to beat Jesus Christ out of my heart before I ever had a chance to fully surrender my life to him. During those formative years of my life, I spent a lot of time at my grandmother's house. As I said, she was the matriarch and in charge of indoctrinating the children and the grandchildren. In my conscious life, I had very little memory of ever going to the Mormon church or speaking of religion in my house. But that is because starting at the age of an infant, the abuse and trauma was so severe that what happens is it creates split personalities. So the way that God has created the human mind is that when you have severe trauma, especially when you're young, your mind splits into sections, and those sections are not part of your conscious mind and memories. Now, the way that that works is they do that on purpose because they want to create what they call alters, or you can call them alternate personalities. These alters then become slaves to their indoctrination. Their goal is to create hundreds of thousands of these alternate personalities for their uses and purposes. Each one has a specific purpose for being created. Every altar that is created is stuck at the age it was created at, whether it be infant, toddler, child, or teen. Each one carries its own belief systems and loyalty to the occult because each altar is created through death threats. Over the course of my infancy, toddlerhood, and childhood, I was faced with death threats and even put to death and brought back to life through mechanical and medicinal ways. They have special machines, tools, and doctors that are there to perform these types of things. Through sheer terror, things that would terrify any adult but are done to very small children, they created many altars within me. Some of these altars would come and consciously run my body, and many of them had no knowledge that there was any other altar. Some altars worked together. Some altars worked specifically just to take over in rituals so that that altar would be completely submissive. I was a very strong-willed child. I did not want to submit to their ways. I had known Jesus. I saw him. I loved him. I worshiped him. And when, even at the tender age of 3, they told me I must bow down and worship Baal, and I refused, and I got beat. Time and time again, over the course of many years, I would refuse to worship Baal, and I would get severely beaten until I had to comply. Now, each time I would end up complying because the beatings would not stop. The abuse would not stop. They would do such things as burn me with hot pokers, tie me to a wall, and rape me, beat me with whips. They would put a chair in a large bucket covered with bugs so that bugs would crawl all over me. They would dunk my head in the toilet, shaming me for believing in the true Jesus Christ. I needed to believe in their Jesus Christ, the false Antichrist spirit, or Baal. Those were just the things that they would do so that I would comply. Those weren't even rituals. Those were just punishments, torturous punishments, but in their eyes, for the good, because I needed very much to obey them. If I didn't obey them, I was going to go to hell. They shamed me time and time again, telling me that I was dirty, ugly, fat, stupid, worthless, and on and on. The abuse was relentless when it happened. There would be times when I would be locked in dark rooms for up to a week or even 2 weeks at a time, starved. It was sensory deprivation. Sometimes I would be locked in a cage for up to a week or 2 at a time. Annually, they would take me to the Mormon temple in Utah, where they would do special rituals to continue the indoctrination. At the age of 8, I was taken to the Mormon temple for my endowment ceremony. But what that really meant was, it was a baptism into the eternal faith of the Mormon Church. In that ceremony, they take you to the baptismal pool. But because they have their tools and tricks to alter your state of consciousness, they use drugs and things like that. Also the torture and the abuse. Also just the fear that they've already instilled in you. Powers of spirits or demons. And just basically witchcraft. They were able to convince me that the water was indeed a pool of acid, which they dipped me in 3 times as they chanted over me to endow me into the Mormon Church forever. I was terrified and screaming in pain so many times over these rituals. Most of the time, rituals, you would be chained to a table or the wall and be raped and sodomized, beaten. Your mind wants nothing more to escape. So on top of creating the altars, you learn to leave your body astrally, astral travel. So your soul leaves the body, which is what their purpose is. They want you to leave your body, because when your soul leaves your body, then they put demonic spirits inside of your body so that they can attach to the altars and control you to the best of their ability. Each of the altars they create has worship or partnership with high levels of demonic spirits or even Nephilim or fallen angels. So my whole childhood was based on instilling all of the Mormon belief system and the belief system of fear, hopelessness, worship of death, and every manner of evil that there was. I can't tell you exactly how often all of the abuse happened. But it was often enough. By the time I was 13, I was so desperate and depressed. I longed and coveted death. I believed with all of my heart that it was my only hope for a way out. In my conscious life, I did not remember any of these things. Because, as I said, they have a way to bring out the altars who don't have any knowledge and connection or way to connect with your conscious parts. In my conscious life, I was so depressed I wanted to die and tried to kill myself numerous times. Even planned and hoped to kill my parents in hopes that that would relieve my pain. But I didn't understand why I was so desperately depressed and hopeless. Well, now I have a better understanding. At that time, I was choosing on my own as a teenager, as a young teenager, to go to the Mormon Church. No longer with my grandmother at this time. there was one that was near my house, I would go with my sister. And at that time, I found out recently through revelation by the Holy Spirit that in that church there was a basement room where they would take girls of that age and chain them and keep them so Nephilim spirits could come and rape them. They don't want you to carry a baby to term. You only need a couple of months or so, and then they can abort the baby and sacrifice it. Because it's a hybrid between a Nephilim and a human. The spirit doesn't need a body and can continue to live or possibly seek another body or form. So they torture you, have a hideous and vile creature rape you, then bring you back and force you to murder your own child that doesn't even look like a child. It's one of the most horrifying things I think I've ever experienced. And there's been pretty horrifying things I've experienced. It was at that time I stopped choosing to go to the Mormon church. I decided I didn't want to have anything to do with it anymore. I wonder why. Even though I didn't remember those things. Every other part of me, every cell in my body, my heart and my soul and my spirit remembered it. You see, they could spend my whole life tricking me and deceiving me to forgetting all these terrible things, but they cannot deceive God, and they cannot stop the power and the awesomeness of God. As my life continued, I just spiraled into depression, longing for suicide until I was about 17. I started in on drugs and alcohol to soothe my pain. Went through relationship after relationship believing that sex was what was going to give me the affection and attention from boys that I desired, because through rituals they taught me that sex would gain me worship. They would put you in some ceremonies on a pedestal as a child and have men ogling you and telling you how beautiful and special you are and that you're a goddess, and you would believe it. You would want to be a goddess, because being a goddess means that the horrible rape and sodomy that they're doing to you is something that's good. You can believe that it's good. There are so many satanic rituals they did, and I really couldn't go into all of them because there was just too many. But many times I was forced to do heinous acts. Many times they had someone dress up like Jesus Christ and tell me it was Jesus, so I would hate Jesus and I would hate God. They told me God hated me and abandoned me, that my God hated and abandoned me, that my Jesus raped me and beat me and choked me while he was raping me. They forced me to commit acts, vile acts against other human beings, because blood and life essence from a human being is power. They steal blood and life essence, especially from children, and consume it or store it away for power. They use child sacrifice sacrifice to steal the life essence of those beings. And that life essence not only gives them power, but it powers temples, ley lines, rituals, and other things that they're working on. If you've heard of CERN, it's being powered by human life force that has been stolen. Every ritual they did on me was an act to try to steal my life force from me. You can steal someone's life force from them as long as you leave enough for them to live. We are made of a lot of spirit and force and power from the creation of God. And if they can harness that and take it, they're harnessing the power of God. Much like in the story in the Bible when they built the Tower of Babel to make their way up into the second heaven, where they longed and desired to be, to achieve the power of gods. It's the purpose of the Illuminati, is to be gods. Take over so that the Antichrist or Lucifer can reign supreme. It's his whole desire and goal. He's been working effortlessly and tirelessly towards it since he came. And since he saw a way through Adam and Eve. We're being constantly inundated with the same mind control programming that they used on me as a child. Through media, every form of it. Music, movies, TV, actors. I've spent hours in a dark room in front of a screen with my eyes propped open, forced to watch images, movies, while the programmer manipulates your mind, will, and emotions to instill his beliefs in you, to instill identities into the altars, to become Snow White, Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland. Always falling down the rabbit hole, always getting lost, because when they put the mind control programming in you and constantly reinforce it year after year after year, especially when you have a young, vulnerable, and fragile mind, it will kick in on its own. All you have to do is watch Alice in Wonderland or Snow White or Cinderella. And the alternate personality that believes it's that has the programming kick in, and it just does its thing. And it's not just those. Disney was absolutely used over and over again, but it wasn't just Disney. Wizard of Oz, The Labyrinth. I found many times where I had an alter who believed or was running programming based on a very famous and popular movie. It's been pretty disturbing to find out. Movies that I loved and cherished. Probably because I just identified with them so intently. They also always used music. Pink Floyd was a big one. The Beatles. Lots of different music. And I cannot forget Star Wars. Star Wars is huge. Huge movie they use in programming. Who doesn't want to be Princess Leia or Han Solo? And unfortunately they create parts of you to believe they're evil, just like Darth Vader. Just like the Wicked Witch. Just like the Red Queen. Because when those alters believe that they're that evil person, they become more powerful and seeking to harness that power that they believe they have, which is the power of a demonic entity. They teach you to worship every manner of god and goddess. The Egyptian ones, the Roman ones, the Greek ones I've never even heard of, and I had to look up. Finally, when I was 20, I moved out of my parents' house. But once you're indoctrinated into the occult, they don't let you go. You're in it for life, as I said. Till death do us part, just like how my grandfather lost his life. I believe my grandfather realized the error of his ways and wanted out, and that's why they murdered him, sacrificed him. As an adult, I wanted to separate myself from anything that had to do with Christianity or God or Jesus, because I believed wholeheartedly that that was evil, the epitome of evil. I had a seething hatred for God and Christianity and Jesus Christ, or at least what I understood from it, which were all lies. I didn't know that. I'd been molded and shaped into who I was, all my beliefs. When I met a couple, a guy and a girl who were Wiccan, I was intrigued. I'd always been intrigued by witchcraft in my conscious life because it was just a part of my whole life anyway. So who wouldn't be attracted to something that was already there? And I was attracted to the enchanting, magical, romantic, sensual side of it, obviously. Not the evil side. Actually, I was very into horror movies for a long time, so. When I met this couple and they started teaching me about their pagan belief system, I was all for it. I wanted to have that life, have that power, have that connection to God. I needed an outlet to find a God that I could be a part of and worship. And my God became the universe and all the gods and goddesses. The earth, creation, the moon, the ocean, myself. And I latched onto that because, to me, I could find love through that. I could find acceptance. I could stop being evil and start harnessing the power of all of this magic and witchcraft and be somebody, not worthless and nothing and disgusting and vile and evil. I could be somebody, and I could be good, because in my heart all I ever desired was to be good. I fought my way to continue to even live as far as I did. And all this time, God never forsake me. He never left me. There was many, many, many times when Holy Spirit has brought me back to the memories and shown me where He was, protecting me. His Spirit standing over me when I would be beat, and He would take the brunt of it. Taking my spirit out of my body, because they meant to corrupt my spirit completely, and they were unable to achieve that because I cried out to God, and He saved me. So as much physical and emotional abuse as I've endured, as much pain and hell and torture and trauma, they couldn't kill the love of God in me. The desire to connect with my Creator, my Papa. They couldn't do it. That was their ultimate goal. Because if I could be a complete mind control program slave, I'd do whatever they wanted. But Jesus was there. Never left my side. Always protected me. God might not protect our bodies, but He always protects our spirit. Because our spirit is eternal, and that is what we need to protect so it can go on and live with our Father God in heaven. Even after our body dies. Our body is temporary, and God can heal everything. Everything, if we will allow Him to. But we have to allow Him to. So once I got into a relationship with this Wiccan couple who was enthralled by me, and he was actually exploring mind control programming himself, but that's not what he called it. I didn't even know what he was talking about. He wanted to try it out on me. And then his brother moved in with them, and I fell madly in love with him. And we had a tumultuous yet passionate relationship for 3 months until suddenly the three of them told me they could not talk to me anymore. Well, it was revealed to me later by the Holy Spirit that while they very much wanted me in their coven, their mother was the coven leader of a Wiccan coven, quite a large one in the area, because they could see how powerful I was. The Spirit of God protected me, and they were not allowed to have me. Because if I, in my conscious life, fully dedicated myself to that level of witchcraft, I don't know where I'd be right now. It's not that I gave up witchcraft, because I did not. That made me passionately seek to learn it even more. However, as hard as I tried over the course of many years, I never could get myself into a coven or make friends with any other witches. And I never could understand, because I sought to try to align myself with others of like-minded belief for a very long time, and never was able to do it. Never. The only time I found a coven that I was seeking to join, I met with them one time, and so many alarm bells were going off, I just walked away. Because just sitting in the room in their gathering, I could see that the coven leader, which was a male, was a dominating pervert, and all the other coven members were women who were very weak and susceptible. And so I never was able to join anything. I ended up in a relationship, another relationship, and that relationship is what produced my two first sons. The occult loves it when you have a son, because a son is an heir, and the firstborn son is a prized and coveted possession. Unfortunately, in some families, the firstborn son is also the one that you need to sacrifice in order to commit your family line. But if someone in your family line, a generation or more generations above you, has already committed a firstborn male heir by sacrifice, then it won't need to be done again by any other generation in that same bloodline. So I did not need to sacrifice my firstborn son. Thank God. Because they do that. I was married to the father of my first two sons. It was a abusive and tumultuous relationship that ended in just much grief and despair as he walked away from the marriage and our children, which left me in a prime state to be ready to be taken by a new and more powerful handler. A handler is the person that is in charge of keeping your programming going, reinforcing it, and making sure that you do what the Illuminati wants you to do. Of course, in my conscious life, I thought that I was just meeting a man and getting into a relationship. I was now in a coven separate from the Mormon Church. This coven was the center hub of authority and power of Satanism and the Illuminati in the area. apparently all my years of training had earned me a position of leadership and a spot in this coveted coven where the top tier of Satanic Illuminati occultists would form and gather together and do rituals and practice witchcraft and do all the things that they do. I wasn't at the top of the top, but I was pretty high up. So the man I met who was to become my handler, because I was still resistant, even though they had created specific altars that would have no connection with any other altars and they could trigger to come forward and take over my body and completely control it, so that I would go to the place, do the rituals, and do the vile things that they trained it to do. Was still resistant. The relationship that I had with this man was even worse than my last relationship. He was extremely emotionally abusive. Physical abuse started. I mean, it could have been a lot worse from my experience, but it was there. At first I was enchanted by him, enthralled with him. I looked up to him. He was 10 years older than I was, and I admired him for his stature and wisdom as an older man. Not that he was some big figure in the community, he was not at all. And he was an artist and creative, and I basically worshipped him in a way. But I couldn't handle the abuse. The relationship turned into him breaking up with me and me begging him to come back over and over and over again. Eventually I actually married him. Just the two of us. I didn't even tell anyone. We ran off. Got married. Wasn't even special. I wore all black. I wasn't happy, but I wanted to be happy. I didn't love him and care for him, but I was miserable. During that relationship, it was on and off for 5 years. During that relationship, my depression just spiraled to a point of just despair so deep. I mean, I just kept trying to kill myself. I was cutting myself again, praying and wishing for death. I was miserable. But it wasn't just because the relationship was abusive. It was because I was back in regular satanic ritual activity. The coven, as it were, which still exists, was held in a church. A Christian church. Some of the members of the coven were Christian, lived a Christian life. Some of them, like myself and the man that I was in a relationship, were not. The leaders, the top leader, the pastor of the church, lived a life of a man who had a wonderful conversion, who was soft-spoken, kind, authoritative, powerful. He has nationwide power and influence today. He's not a man at all. He's a shell of a man controlled by a fallen angel. The whole structure of the coven was based on rotating leadership, but at the very top level there was leaders that never rotated. They stayed like the heads, almost like a mother and father figures, but leaders of the coven. I didn't have relationships with any of these people in my conscious life at all. So because the altar would come forward, only to take me there, do the things there, and come home, I would have never known I even knew any of these people or had any kind of relationship with them whatsoever. During this relationship, I became pregnant. I really wanted to have a baby with him. I was really excited. However, it was not to be so. I was dragged there. He gave me a beer one night. It was drugged. Drove me over to the church where the coven was meeting. Tied me to the ritual table and performed a forced abortion on me. I was only a few months along. It was a little girl. He murdered her right in front of me. It's one of the most devastating things that has ever happened to me. I'm not a murderer. I don't like hurting people. And to see your own child stabbed to death, I can't tell you what that does to the human psyche. I was 27 at the time. My body started having severe reactions to the forced abortion. I kept having cramping pain and bleeding for months, and I didn't know what was wrong with me because they wiped away my memories of being pregnant and sacrificing my child. And I went to the doctor, and they couldn't tell me what was wrong with me. They told me they thought I had cancer. The Illuminati has a lot of people in their pocket. I was scheduled to go in for a test where you drink a special liquid, and when they would x-ray you, it would highlight the insides of your body. And that morning I just decided I couldn't go through with it, and I didn't go, and all the problems with my body stopped. For years I was desperately wanting to have a little girl, and when I got pregnant with my third son, I was sure it was going to be a girl. I was sure. And when I had the ultrasound, found out it was a son, I was so devastated. I was so devastated and mourned the loss of not having a daughter for years and years and years. And I had no idea why. You can ask my husband and friends. I had my fourth son, and then my husband decided we were done having children. And the anger and rage and depression that welled up inside me was unbelievable, because I was never going to have a chance to have a daughter. But really, I was mourning the fact that I had a daughter who was never going to have a life. I should have a daughter right now. She should be 13. Can't tell you how much pain that brings up. It's still fresh. God has assured me she's never suffered, and she is indeed with him in heaven. It was at that point I ran away from him, my handler, my husband, legally. And the other leaders of the coven decided that I needed a new handler. Things weren't going to work. I was too strong-willed. I was punished for that through some more torture and abuse. And given over to someone else. Well, in my conscious life, I began to get to know this person, unknowing that I was just given over to him in a ceremony. I mean, he was totally in love with me, smitten with me from the first time he heard my voice on the phone. We met at work on a conscious level. And I didn't like him. And I didn't like him for a year. I ended up moving in with him because I got kicked out of my house and had no place to go with my 2 children. We had a relationship. We tried to have a romantic relationship. But I just couldn't fall in love with him. I didn't know why. I felt forced. I felt forced into this relationship with a man that I didn't want to be in a situation I didn't want. Now I understand why I felt that way. But God is good. Because this man that, unfortunately, even though he was a member of this coven, high levels of witchcraft, he was a good man and had a good heart. And he was who God had chosen for me. It's just that the devil tried to corrupt it and twist it so it would just be for evil, for his purposes. But I did fall in love with him. It did take me a year, but I did fall in love with him, and we got married, and we have 2 beautiful sons together, and he's also going through inner healing as well now. And he's a very good man. All the time, still going to the covens, ritual night, special days, holy days, all of that. Always going to the coven events, rituals, and things. Sometimes hosting them ourselves. It wasn't until my grandmother died 3 years ago that I had her power released from me and was able to get a deliverance and start inner healing and find out that I was indoctrinated into the occult and a member of a Satanic Illuminati coven. The highest order of Luciferianism. It's taken me 2 years, piece by piece by piece, to know all the things that I've told you today. I haven't uncovered everything. I may never. I've uncovered the things I've needed to uncover in order to regain the fragmented pieces of my soul, to recapture them, to recapture my life essence, to disassociate my power and authority from this Satanic Illuminati coven and bring myself all the way to Christ. I'm not all the way there. It's a process that takes time. But I have now regained and captured enough of my fragmented and lost parts that there is more of me that is dedicated to Christ and the cause that He has assigned me to than there is to that coven. I have completely broken free of the coven, 100%. I have completely healed every altar that would take my body over and take me there. And every association that I had with all of their rituals and witchcraft, they still do, are 100% active. They have only gained in power and momentum and popularity since they began. And they still try to call me back into the occult with triggers, programming triggers, astral rituals, witchcraft, and many other things. I've had some hard days where some severe things have happened because they're trying to punish me for leaving, get me to come back, get me to participate, harness my power, all kinds of things. God is good. It's gotten me through a lot of really incredibly hard things to where I am. I'm just so thankful. I am just so thankful. I'm thankful for all of it. I'm thankful that God chose me and trusted me to go into the darkest of evil and come out on the other side of darkness, to tell my testimony and bring light and truth and hope into those dark places. You see, while you might think that my story is unique, it's not. Hundreds of thousands of other individuals, such as myself, have lived a life indoctrinated into the Satanic Illuminati occult through their family and bloodline, generational curses, and have no memory or recollection because they too had alternate personalities created that would keep them from the knowledge and recognition of what was happening. And they'd only remember this conscious life that had nothing to do with any of it. I did not find this out until I was 36 years old, 4 years ago. Actually, I was 38. It was on my 38th birthday. I was 36 when I got saved. And many, many people will not come to the place that I have come, where they know that this has happened. Not only because finding out is so devastating that it could wreck you, it could kill you because you need the power of Christ to get through, to lean on, and to bring you through it. But you also need someone who's been trained and has authority with ministering to people who have been mind control programmed through satanic rituals. Otherwise, you're treading on dangerous water. God brought me a long way, but like I said, it wasn't until my grandmother died that I was able to have enough freedom that I could get a deliverance and begin inner healing. I mean, this is impossible. You should think. It's absolutely the opposite of what the devil had in mind. I've spent so many years in anger and despair and hatred, hurting myself and hurting others, just using my hate as a weapon and a shield. But nothing is impossible with God. Nothing. It does not matter where you've been. You have heard my story. And I know it sounds horrific, but I just want you to see me here now and know that I am more than a conqueror through Christ. And I will continue on this path and journey into whatever God has for me, no matter what it is, because I fully trust and rely on Christ as my strength and my Lord and my shepherd and my shield and my protection and my King. Because God can do anything. He can redeem anything. He can wipe away your past, your pain, and heal you in miraculous ways. Whatever the devil has destroyed, God can rebuild it up into a mighty temple for the Lord in ways that we can't even fathom. We cannot even fathom. So many people right now are struggling and desperate, and they do not understand. They're just like me. And they have whole systems of things set up inside of them that they can't even comprehend. Because we were not designed to, and because it's been hidden. But you know what? God's got you. You have no idea to the depths that God has got you. And even if you never walk through the path of healing, you are going to go and be with Christ in heaven when you die. And all of your suffering and pain will be washed away as if it never happened. And whatever has happened to you, it was never for nothing. God works all things for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, just as he has for me. So I will continue to speak boldly the truth, because the occult has no hold over me any longer. I am free. And they can keep doing what they want to do to try to harass me, but God will protect me, just as he always has. And God will provide for me, just as he always has. There is an entire Illuminati, Satanic Illuminati system in place in our churches, our Christian churches, but every other religion and church there is as well, where the core foundation of leaders are secret Satanists performing satanic rituals, murders, sacrifices, torture, rituals, and abuse in the church with other church members. Not in every church, but in churches in every single city, in every single state, in every single country right now. And they look like good, upstanding citizens living a Christian life. Some of them, like me, just don't know what they're doing, and they have alternate personalities that come forward and take over. And they are saved, a part of them, a part of the core of who they are, and they will go to heaven. But some of them are 100% evil and look as good and white and pure as snow. And they're evil to the core. And some of them are not even human. And I don't tell you any of this for you to have fear. Because on the last day, God will reign and he will have his judgment. And Satan is going to be cast down into the fiery pit of hell once and for all, never to return. It's not about how we live our life. It's about how much of us can we give to Christ. If I never made another blog post or did another video again, it would not make a difference as far as my salvation or my worth or who I am in Christ. The only thing that makes a difference is how much of myself I'm willing to surrender and submit humbly before God. Do you think I enjoyed knowing that I participated in these horrific events? No. But God has shown me that I have already been forgiven because I never even chose any of it. I was indoctrinated into it as an infant and mind controlled, programmed to just follow blindly without consciously even choosing to be a part of it. My conscious self ran and feared evil and chose to do good, even though I was confused about what was good and not good because of being indoctrinated into lies. So in closing, I just want to say, thank you for who you are. You are a beloved of your dear Papa in heaven, who has searched your heart and said, you are good. I love you. You are my dear child. And you will be home with me at the end of these days. No matter what magnitude of fear was instilled upon you, you are beloved. And I know some of you are struggling and in pain, but you need to focus on the one truth that the devil can never steal from you unless you allow him. God is your Father, and he will never, never leave you or forsake you. Have a wonderful, blessed day.